Welcome back to Fly the Coop, everybody. We're so excited to have you today. We are with Melissa Fritz. Welcome, Melissa. How are you doing today?
Thanks. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Wait till you meet Melissa, everybody. She is a dynamic personality that has been very, very, very present in the senior living challenges and lifestyle Fly the Coop storyline that we're going to be focusing our conversation around today, and was just onboarded with PBS. Congratulations, Melissa.
Thank you. Well, we are very excited because we are just finalizing a co-production agreement with PBS North for distribution with PBS's platform. It's called NIDA nationally. So this show, our goal would be for this show to be broadcast or distributed nationwide by next spring, next summer.
Oh my
So
gosh, what a commitment. It's just so
yeah,
fascinating. I've been wanting to get Melissa on this program for a long time now. Let's start from the beginning, Melissa, and what your involvement has been, which has been dynamic in the world of what's happening in senior living right now, which is a big conversation that every household is having because it's such a huge part of our community, our state, and our country. So why don't you fill
right.
us in on what you've been doing and how you got to where you're at right now with this program?
Okay, well, I have been have had many different careers, and my latest career happened to be as a senior living consultant.
Mhm.
And what I continued to hear every day was stories like mom broke her hip. She's living in her home.
Mhm.
Uh, we can't, home care is costing us a fortune. We, have exhausted home care resources, and now we need to find a place right away for
Mhm.
mom.
Yeah.
And then continue that on with then once they meet with me in the community, I have been just shocked with the fact that families and seniors don't really fully understand the process and what options are available to them as far as senior living goes.
That's right.
But then it also dawned on me, why would you?
Hmm.
Most of us would say, yeah, I want to live out my years in my own home.
Hmm.
And that is really the goal. However, there are so many instances. For example, I'll give you a statistic that 70% of people over the age of 65 will need some form of long-term care.
Hmm.
So from
That's
65 on.
massive.
So that's a pretty big percentage of us that will, after we're 65, need some form of care.
Hmm.
So it's surprising to me that we aren't talking about this in
Hmm.
more of a mainstream way until we're in or near a crisis. So
Right.
that's kind of the premise of I was working in the industry. I kept hearing these stories repeatedly of, oh my gosh, we don't, here we are in or near a crisis. We need help. We need to find a place.
Hmm.
And it's so stressful for families.
So
One,
stressful.
yeah, you see this because you're the one
Oh,
on
all
the
the
other
time.
end. Now we need to sell mom's home or
Hmm.
mom and dad's home that they've
Yep.
been living in for 45 years, right? So my goal was to try to find an entertaining and educational resource to give to families so that they could watch it and, um, okay, start to have these conversations
They're
over the
hard
dinner table.
conversations, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
right. But
Make it
um,
fun. At least have
right,
a
but
conversation.
right, at least have
Yeah.
conversation. Like, remember maybe 10 years ago, the whole conversation started about, hey, do you have a healthcare directive? I
Hmm.
mean, 20 years ago, we weren't talking about that.
Hmm.
So it is possible to start bringing these hard conversations about end of life into our culture.
Hmm.
The American culture, we don't do death and dying and being old very well.
Yeah.
So that's really where the idea was born. Is I couldn't find the right resources that I wanted online to give to families
Mhm.
during COVID.
It's a huge issue. Yeah.
Yes. So 3 years ago, this idea was like, hey, well, there's no show. Like
Nothing.
there's a million House Hunters shows
Hmm.
and no House Hunters Senior Living.
Yeah.
So this show is really Inside Senior Living is like how in the format of House Hunters with the family drama of an intervention
Hmm.
show. So it
It's
is
got to keep it interesting, right? Because you're
right.
competing with an audience that wants to live in youth, wants to live in this kind of sexy, fun, energy filled thing. Well, it's how you put the spin on it. You can make this next stage in life, which is a huge group of, it's a huge audience, it's a huge population of people, and
Yes.
get them engaged in a way that is softer and
Mhm.
has a spin on it that's entertaining, kind of,
Mhm.
and interesting, which is what
Right.
you've done, which I'm so
Yes.
psyched for you because you've really worked hard to get it to this point.
Thank you. Yes.
So,
Well, and I've seen so many people in senior living that after they move in, the
mhm,
struggle is real and the drama is real to get to that stage. But
mhm,
then they will tell me 30 days after they move in, oh my gosh, I wish I would have done this sooner.
mhm,
Um, so there are so many options out there in senior living
yeah,
that are active and fun and vibrant and great food and activities and things, it's not the traditional grandma's nursing home
mhm,
that a lot of people think in their mind, assisted living, oh my gosh, I don't want to move into a nursing home.
mhm,
And so that's the education piece for me is such a big part of it to educate the general public on assisted living is not a nursing home. Here are your options. Here's the variety of price ranges you have.
mhm,
So, but yeah, the show is going to explore. Each episode will have one family or one subject, either an individual or a couple,
mhm.
and
Brilliant.
we'll look at their current situation, the either in or near a crisis, or what's going on that is causing them not to be able to live independently in their own home any longer,
Mhm,
and sparking the need for change. And then we will explore two or three different options for them
mhm,
in assisted living or housing arrangements.
mhm.
And sometimes that may mean finding a really good home care
Yeah,
solution.
right,
So I also want to explore that side on this show, that it's not just a promotion for assisted living or
right.
communities. It's a promotion for let's talk about this and let's explore really um, honoring the wishes of
Mhm.
some. Because wouldn't you
Yeah,
want that? I don't want my
absolutely.
kids forcing me to do something I don't want to do. So it's really about starting the conversation so that we can all end up where we want to be. And
Right.
yes, oftentimes it's not exactly the ideal situation, but for the most part, when people are resistant to moving into a community, they do generally like it after they
Yeah.
move in. They are
So
usually positive.
what you've done is you've reverse engineered an issue out there, and you're approaching it with the outcome in an enthusiastic way and opening up a door for everybody here in the United States anyway, because this is a show that'll be broadcasted, I'm assuming, nationally, right?
Mhm. Yep.
So what you're doing is you're giving families a platform and an opportunity to figure out how to open up a conversation, a dialogue. Right now, from the perspective of, real estate and coming in from the front side of it, right? And entering into a story, we are in a bit of a counseling session quite frequently. We probably have these lifestyle meetings with families 5 times a week. And I've set up my own, you being one of my little micro team, if you will, of resources that I'm able to dip into when I need
Mhm.
um, to give a point of beginning, like a start point of where and what do I do, who do I call, because there's no funnel right now that's pulling all this content and all this information on
Yeah.
price ranges, locations, what is available to me. It's very fragmented right now. We don't have a system in place to manage our elders that allows families to come in and be solution-based thinkers because it's so displaced, all the intel. So I'm so psyched for you because you've been pretty involved with this subject for quite a while now. And I think this is going to be really helpful to a lot of families moving forward. It's very exciting information, really fun.
Well,
So
and oh, go ahead.
explain to them where what you just came out of. Like in part, this was inspired by personal experience from your previous role. Share with
Yeah.
everybody what that was like and what you learned from it that inspired you to do this, Melissa.
Well, the catalyst for the inspiration, my first personal experience was my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
who spent 7 years in an assisted living, 8 years in a memory care community, lived just a week shy of her 101st birthday.
Wow.
So wonderful lady, and we had a very good experience in assisted living and memory care with her. And then my own father was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's dementia at 67.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So we have gone through that experience, and in an assisted living that was not a good experience, and ended up moving him out and then finding a memory care. So we've gone through that, and personally, but 3 years ago, in the middle of just the worst of right when the COVID pandemic was happening, and PPE was very slim pickings. So
Mm-hmm.
I was working in a community, and when I started to see the devastation with both on the resident side and the family side, this is when, remember when families were no longer, like, it was a total shutdown.
Yeah, I know.
Families could not go and visit their loved ones. So imagine a loved one in memory care at that time. They don't understand. They're living day to day and moment by moment. They
Mm-hmm.
don't understand why no one's coming to visit them.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally, it was such a heart-wrenching experience for me
Mm-hmm.
to try to juggle me. I ended up being the conduit between the families, kind of the liaison between the family members and then their loved one, and spending time and FaceTiming. I'm trying to do everything I
Mm-hmm.
could
That's a
to
lot.
bridge the gap, but started to see some kind of some of the flaws too
Mm-hmm.
in our system, and how we need to, through conversation,
Mm-hmm.
through some kind of mechanism, we need to start talking about this, exploring this. Why is our system so broken?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we so short-staffed as far as in that senior living and healthcare space?
Mm-hmm.
So I just started documenting, like, stories. I started writing stories and ideas, and I didn't really know 3 years ago what. I wasn't thinking this is going to be a TV show.
Right.
I just was trying to process all this information on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were all binge watching, shows during the
Yeah.
pandemic.
Right.
And I'm watching House Hunters, and I'm
Yeah.
watching Julia, Chip and Joanna.
Yeah.
And it struck me, oh my gosh, there's all these home shows, but there's no home show about senior living.
Mm-hmm.
Yet every day, until 2030, 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so we all know, it's all been out there, like, oh, the baby boomers are aging, the baby boomers are aging.
And go
But
back to the analytic again. You said at the beginning that at age 65, what's the percentile that will need some type of support? What?
70%. So seven
Holy
out of
cow.
10,
Wow.
7 out of 10 individual, Americans that turn 65 will at some point in their, from 65 on,
The
need
biggest.
some form of long-term care.
And if
So
my
this,
memory serves me correctly, Melissa, and an analytic from the real estate side, that's 40% of our national population, is my understanding.
it's
Massive,
huge.
massive thing.
Yes. And so when you just look at this from a real estate perspective,
Mhm.
think of also the how pricing structures have changed, how
Yeah.
our economy has really changed,
Yep.
how it's different than 10, 20 years ago,
Mhm.
when a senior on a fixed income could sell their house and realistically afford to move into a senior
Mhm.
living and pay for care. So
Yep.
another component to be explored, is the financial
Mhm.
repercussions and what happens from a real estate perspective.
Right.
Is someone better off renting their home? Should they sell their home? Should
Mhm.
they reverse mortgage? Um,
Mhm.
but it's definitely something from a housing perspective that we're going to need to explore, in addition to housing that can accommodate multi-generation.
So this is where and you and I haven't even talked about this, so I'm just putting this out to the audience. Many do not know that in our city, we're 500,000 homes short to the supply need that we have. One, we have an imbalance right now, buyers versus sellers. And even with the rate change, there's a visceral need for housing. Two, and three, a lot of the housing is owned by 40%. Again, we're going to go back to the number. 40% of the housing in our city and state is owned by baby boomers, free and clear in many cases. During a time, unlike other parts of the country, we're a very stable market here, and albeit we saw huge appreciations over the last 5 years. Some will say that stabilization means a depreciation. That's not at all the case. We're just going to start seeing, hopefully, here for the betterment of everybody, a more balanced market. And in part, that balanced market, there's some play here in the awareness of the amount of equity these stories actually have, and they're unaware of that. And
Yes.
can that equate? This is where we get into the numbers, where we really deep dive to the cost analysis based on where they're at in their life. What can they afford, and what's the path of least resistance with the best life outcome, like the most and highest best use of quality of experience, right?
Yes.
I think a lot of these people have more equity than they realize because they've been in their home for so long. And many don't know what those statistics really look like because the media, from a national perspective, doesn't really share that intel. So
True.
that's an interesting thing to play into the storyline as you're educating people from region to region in the country, because the market's supplying these homeowners with a considerable amount of equity play to help
Yeah.
them figure out how to right size into this next, I say there's a door opening because we're here, we're
Yeah.
living, and
Yeah.
we want to have the best life possible. So what's so cool about you is what I envision happening, tell me if I'm wrong, is you're going to be able to share to one to many, right? To a
Mhm.
large audience, these are all of the options out there. This is what's being built. These are the price points. These are the experiences. This is the cost to stay in your home if you decided to do that. What's the cost analysis on taking care of that space and operation costs versus not? And then giving people, the families, those resources so they
Yes.
know regionally who they can call to start having that conversation. None of that's been happening at all.
No,
Yeah.
no. And you bring up such a good point as far as equity position that people aren't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And um, so this is, I want to speak to that situation,
Mm-hmm.
because Um, Oftentimes folks are hesitant to sell their home and move into a continuum of care community, which is a community where you can start out, you move in as an independent
Mm-hmm.
living resident, so you're very independent, but then, and so you choose your apartment, and then if or when you need any kind of healthcare services, you can add that on
Mm-hmm.
without having to move. And then those communities oftentimes also have a memory care, unit or community in that building structure, in that facility or neighborhood,
Right.
that if you needed memory care, you could move there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a big hurdle for homeowners that I've heard is it's hard mentally to go from I've owned a home my
I
whole
know.
adult life,
Trust
and
me.
now to go to a rental, right?
Mhm.
But this is where, Carrie Ann, okay, there are things like senior cooperatives
I know.
are a good, buy-in communities where you do have an ownership share.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the exact statistics on this, but I had worked for Ebenezer,
Yep.
great, Minnesota's largest senior living, fabulous company.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the pioneers in senior co-ops.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the oldest first co-ops that was ever developed in the 70s, 7500 York, they have found that a lot of those residents that moved in, because they were moving in right around, the 60, 65, where they were moving in young and active,
Right.
they've actually been able, because of the restaurant on site, because of the socialization, because of that community,
Right.
those people are actually staying in their own home longer
Right.
than had they stayed in their own home,
Correct.
just being isolated.
We've done 10 co-ops in the last 2 years with our clients. We have a huge sphere because of my age. As you know, I've known you and
Yeah,
Stu for a long time. And when you're in this business for 20 plus years, you're aging, I'm aging,
yeah,
and my community of people are aging that I've known for all
right.
these years, and their parents are aging. So
Mhm.
I would say 90% of the work I do is with multiple lifestyle moves have already happened, and I'm dealing with their family, their parents. So the answer, I want to just speak to that because the experience, like I think there's fear because they don't know. The
Yeah,
families don't know because they're not researching it. The
yeah,
parents are fearful because they think old school. They think about when they were our age or younger and they were going to the nursing home to see their grandma and grandpa and what nursing homes used to be. I do
yes.
believe those exist still. I'm not saying they don't, but I think the evolution, which will be fabulous to see on your program, the
Mhm.
evolution of what lifestyle is now for our aging community. There's been people put their foot down and they're like, these are things, see, these are services I need. Kind of
Yeah,
like the lifestyle condominiums that you're seeing going up for millennials right now. They're full concierge, right?
yes,
There's a
yes.
lot of interesting options out there. So I think that's going to be a really cool thing to be able to share to the one to many because of the program. And I don't think you're right. I don't think they just don't know what they don't know.
Right. And we're not talking about it and we're not seeing it.
Yeah.
And so this show is going to, tell a story,
Mhm.
follow a family,
Yeah.
um, follow the adult daughters. That's the number one, that's the top demographic,
Hmm.
actually, of folks who reach out to a senior living consultants like myself. It's
Yep.
the adult daughter between 40 and 60
Yep.
that are calling on behalf of their parent or a loved one.
And on behalf
And
of the family.
on behalf of family, but they're also dealing with their own careers and families.
Hmm.
And so that's really the target of who this viewer
Hmm.
uh, is like us, the
Yeah.
adult daughters. And
Yeah.
we're trying to manage all of these things. And so it's giving us an outlet to watch something that's going to educate us and entertain us.
Hmm.
Um, and
I
just
love
start the
it.
conversation. And then we will also have a resource website that
That's
will then
great.
it'll be the call to, okay, you want to see more about this show?
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you want resources in your area? And then they'll be directed to our website, and they'll be able to
Brilliant.
reach out. Yeah.
I love about that, Melissa. You're forming a community that doesn't exist right now, for real, everybody. It does not exist right now, which is amazing. Separately, this is going to be a working, living document almost, this website. It's going to be ever evolving because
Mhm.
all these different mom, pop, all these small little opportunities, there's so many interesting things happening out there, Melissa. I've got a community of elders that are looking to build their own co-op, as an example, where they're selling 10 homes and then they're going to buy one structure. They're going to create their own co-op and bring in their own help. So a chef, a
Mhm.
nurse, whatever their servicing needs, and they're going to be together as their own community. They're good friends, right? And
Yeah.
they're going to go ahead and stay in their home. And that's going to be their version of aging into the next stage of life. There's lots of
I
creative things going on out there right now.
Yes, and see, that's another fabulous idea of ways that we're going to have to be creative
Mm,
in, as we max housing.
yeah,
And there's more than one solution for
many
people.
solutions, many
So
solutions. On the team, Elizabeth met a client who's doing this all over the country, and they're creating almost like a micro live-in community. They're taking old historic housing that maybe has 6 to 7 suites in it. They're renovating and creating a version of a retirement co-op. There's quite a lot of investing happening in that environment with the awareness of the population of people that are needing those services. Now, understand there's different pricing categories. Like, well, you guys will delve into that. And I think the biggest not challenge, but the biggest resource for your inside senior living will be stating if this is your budget, this is your ecosystem in this region. If this is your budget, this is your ecosystem. So they have a more direct route with an
yeah,
understanding of what that conclusion looks like and what that environment feels like so they can get comfortable with it.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I think
And
it's cool.
I'm sure that this subject has come up with you with
Oh, yeah.
folks selling their house like this. What happens when I run out of money? I
Yep.
sell my house. So for
It's
example,
all
with my
about the money, fear.
memory care, oh my gosh, memory care, it's very expensive.
Yep.
So what happens if you have a couple, one needs memory care? How do I preserve the assets? So these are also conversations that you and I realize when someone's at a point of having that conversation with us,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of hard for us because we realize it's almost too late.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh shoot, we should, I wish I would have met you 5 years ago
Mm-hmm.
and put you in touch with an elder law attorney and,
Mm-hmm.
the right people that could help you plan the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's life. Oftentimes we can't plan.
Yeah,
Like
I
my
know.
dad, who would think, at 67, you are diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So
Right. Right. It's just, life throws you these ringers and you just have to give yourself grace to be present with what's been served to you in terms of a decision. And if you have the ability to put some forethought and planning into it, what I think you're doing right now is you're offering an opportunity to provide knowledge, Melissa. You're going to become this amazing resource to people. And during a time that we're really critically needing the information and no one's offering it, there
yeah,
is nobody offering a platform right now that really lays out the foundation of options. So I just think it's unbelievable. I'm so happy for you and proud of you. It's just a brilliant, brilliant idea.
thank
So
you.
what does the next year look like? I know you've been running like crazy trying to get
Yeah.
this thing launched. What does day-to-day life look like for you to get this thing up and running? Where are
So
you at right now?
we have so our production team, we're partnering with PBS North, which is the Duluth affiliate of PBS.
Okay.
And we're, like I said, we're in the final phases of contract, because that's another thing, like, oh,
So
the
complicated.
process, it's a long process, but we're very excited to be working with their team. So they're inside senior living. So I have a team of showrunner, producer, director, a PR person, a fundraising expert, consultant, and then we will be partnering with them for their technical production side, and then of course the distribution. So they will be responsible for putting the show out on the platform and really, really working together with us. So we are so excited to be working with their team. And we just got word last week that we applied for what's called a fiscal sponsorship through Film North.
Wow.
So this is also big news, not just in the senior living space, but in the Minnesota, the Twin Cities film industry.
Yeah.
So TV film for here. So Film North, fabulous resource and nonprofit here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, that helps filmmakers like launch their projects. They offer education and that, and we are approved. So we have a fiscal sponsorship set up through them so that we can begin raising funds for the project. So unlike a show on a traditional, on a different like an HDTV or such, PBS is a nonprofit, public broadcasting. So the show is produced through underwriting. So we are very excited. PBS obviously is offering, they're doing their part of fundraising, but then we're doing a lot of our own fundraising as well.
Wow.
So this allows us to go out, corporations, they have funds that they want a tax write-off on. So hey, if you want to support not only Minnesota filmmakers, but the senior living, our seniors and that space, this is a great opportunity to become a fiscal sponsorship through Film North.
Wow.
For this project.
Oh my
Yeah, and
God.
you get a tax write-off on it. So
Okay, that's brilliant. So we're gonna have to include all of that on this intel so we can make sure to hit more people and they're aware of it, because it's the first step is awareness, right? In all things.
yeah, absolutely. And it's
Yeah.
hard, I'm not the kind of person, as you know, like I'm not the kind of person that's very good at, hey, would you like to support us? But it's a lot easier and palatable for me to say, these are, corporations that do have funds and money and foundations, that this is what they do. What a great opportunity to give to what I think is a very, really become active and a partner in this project with us. So
I love it.
we're really excited.
Yeah, it's really, really impressive, Melissa. Really impressive. So we're going to be doing another interview as you're moving through this process of the fundraising effort. When is the launch officially going to happen with the program, in your opinion? When will it actually be available to the eyes of the audience?
So we're hoping, if things go as current schedule, is that we will begin filming this fall in Duluth and in the Twin Cities.
Okay.
And then it'll be post-production and we'll actually launch in the spring of 2020.
Okay.
So that's kind of the goal. Obviously things can change based on production schedules, but that's really what we're hoping for. So we'll also be reaching out to you, Carrie Ann, because we're going to be looking for families who to participate, who would be willing to share their stories and their journey as they go through this. And I think it would be really cool to include, if you have clients,
Absolutely.
This is what you do.
And I think that there are I've got great people. I already, you know me, the idea,
You're like,
all kinds of fireworks
yeah,
out of my head right now.
yeah,
I even have some great thoughts on a fundraising effort to really bring these people, these resources together to learn, because that's the biggest thing is the networking and
yeah,
empowering the knowledge and sharing what's happening because everyone's so busy.
right.
There's like a high level conversation, but nobody really understands the depths, like the intelligence behind what's going on out there. So there's lots to come over the next couple of months.
Yes,
Melissa, I'm so honored to have you on the show today. Before we let you go, I'm going to totally take you a different direction.
yes,
Because you're a mom,
uh-huh,
wife, and you're
yes.
running a major, major undertaking right now. How do you find your balance in all of it? What's your secret sauce?
Okay, my balance comes from, I would say, number one, my faith in God.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and having a foundation of faith for me is really the thing that I turn to when I recognize, as we all do, you get, I'm starting to get really stressed out. That's when I kind of realize I got to go back to my foundation, which is my faith and making sure I'm centered in the peace that I know that this life, we life is short.
Mm-hmm.
So, excuse me. So, don't sweat the small stuff,
Right.
Melissa. Give and love to the best of your ability, do the best you can, and recognize that God gives me grace to cover when I feel inadequate. So, for
You
me, that's just really the best solution for me.
the best words of advice I've heard all year, my friend. That was brilliant. All right,
Well,
everybody. Melissa Fritz, a beautiful woman with a brilliant, brilliant opportunity for everybody, in my opinion. There's going to be lots to come here. So we will be linking up all the intel around Inside Senior Living. And I would love to be a participant in what I think would be a really cool networking event so everyone can learn more about this, Melissa. It would be really an honor. So thank you
thank,
so much for being here today.
well, thank you so much for being persistent in
Yeah,
getting me on the show. I really appreciate it. No, thank you
yeah.
so much.
Oh, I
I
know
appreciate
there's a story there and I want to share it because it's a great one. So, Melissa Fritz, everybody, thank you so much. We will see you next time on Fly the Coop. Have a great day.